Joining us today is Alex Nichols is back again, laying in the cut. But he's got a few promos to take care of at the top of today's show. Number one, just like to remind you that you have 2.5 weeks left to get your order in for Matt's book at chapotraphouse.store. And while you're there, check out our new merch. We've got a Dr. Jolly West shirt, a JFK shirt, and a new logo hoodie for you to enjoy just in time for, some early Christmas shopping or early Halloween shopping or early Thanksgiving shopping. You can take care of all your holiday needs at chapotraphouse.store for dads, grads, and trads. Also to remind you, our November 4th Election Eve live show in Los Angeles with E1. Tickets still available. Link to buy them will be in the show description. Also, I can let you know now at that show, we'll also feature Dan Beckner and Nick Thornburg of Indie Rock Darlings will be portraying the role of the house band for the E1 Chapo live show. Again, that's November 4th in Los Angeles. And also premiering on our Patreon tomorrow is Vic Berger's The Phantom of Mar-a-Lago, a half-an-hour found footage documentary about Trump's time out of office in his own personal Neverland in his Florida golf club and utopia, just in time for him to become president again. So, got the plugs out of the way. Let's kick off today's show.
These people are not your allies. They are not the same as us. They come from an inferior culture that is horrible. It kills people for their identity, and it is directly antithetical to everything Western values stand for, and it is an inferior culture in all ways.
Okay, so Felix and Alex, I have a question for you at the top of the show. I just saw this streaming guy named Asmongold, I believe his name is, say that he supports the genocide of Palestinians because they come from an inferior culture. And I wanted to ask you guys.
They're like the cockroaches in my room.
Yeah.
They're like all these insectoids and vermin that are crawling all over my legs.
I wanted to ask you who this guy
like
was.
They're like the dead rat that I use him as an alarm clock.
They don't even care about the health of their family members over there.
Asmongold is someone who you would describe in 19th century parlance as a grotesque. He is a Texas-based streamer who is more well known at this point, I think, for his hovel-like living conditions. He famously had a dead rat that would sit on his windowsill, and he would use it as an alarm clock because, as he put it, when the sun would rise, the Texas heat, it would make the rat smell worse, and he'd go, "Oh, it's morning," and wake up. He's one of these streamers that makes like tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, but still pretty much lives like that. I didn't know a lot about him. I kind of liked him because he looked like Charles Martel. Maybe that's why he's so, anti-Islam, is that he is.
Yeah, he looks like he should have lived in the Middle Ages, like the early Middle Ages.
Yeah. He once he got streaming, he had probably the same teeth as Charles Martel. They were completely rotted, and he got really fucking freaky veneers. But I don't know. I've only encountered him once, and he's one of these I'm against political extremes guys. Like, I was on a very weird podcast stream, and the topic of our subreddit getting banned came up. And, as listeners know, we are in favor of that.
Absolutely.
Getting banned.
Fuck those people.
They asked this grotesque about it, and he said, I think it's good because more political, we need to get rid of political extremes, which apparently, all Arabs are racially inferior, is not an extreme. That is just...
Yeah, it's like the weird centrist thing where you just can't really do that anymore. Maybe you used to be able to do that, where you could say that, they're the only democracy in the Middle East, and they're actually civilized. But a lot of the time we're talking about Mizrahi Jews, so you can't really make that argument.
Yeah.
And you're talking about Russian immigrants, too. So, the literacy rate for those people is 15%.
You're talking.
So I don't even know what you're talking about.
Right. Half of them, it's Russians with one half Jewish great-grandparent who, that their entry into politics is that they blinded a 7-year-old child by throwing a firecracker at them. And
They followed a
got
trail
them
of vodka down the Caucasus, and that's where they ended up.
Yeah. Or
That's the civilization they have.
Or a Mizrahi club promoter whose grandfather was named Abdullah, and he's like, I think anyone without a pure Hebrew name should be stoned to death.
Yeah, and his grandfather burned down his own club.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, all I knew about this guy is that I just saw a clip of, as you said, Felix, a grotesque broadcasting from some sort of shack or some hovel of some kind, saying that he supports killing all Palestinians because they're products of an inferior culture, and evidence of the inferiority of that culture is that culture is in favor of killing people because of their identity. And then I just Googled like Asmongold, and I just wanted to see like, okay, I'd like to see an example of someone who's the product of a superior culture who deserves to live and have human rights and things like that. And all I figured out was that he's a World of Warcraft streamer. But the fact that this cultural paragon is waking himself up every morning with the smell of a decaying rat is really better than I could have possibly imagined. So thank you for filling in the.
He presumably doesn't do that anymore. But like the thing that I have before I knew that he wanted a genocide of all Arabs and Muslims, the thing that I thought was the worst thing about him was he lives in pure filth, and he's like just physically repulsive. No minutes, no hours a day dedicated towards, sweeping the floor or anything. And you would think someone who lives like that, well, at least they would be good at games. He's not, though.
No, he's just a consumer of games.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the people on the right wing, they're just consumers. They're just people who like Star Wars, and they're not really good at anything. And that's why they're so angry, because they can't actually prove that they're good at anything.
I love AI so much.
It's just, I really like stuff, and you're supposed to give me money because I really, really like stuff. The mainstream stuff that everybody my age liked. Who stunk.
Demonius X was the most influential conservative thinker of the 21st century.
Yeah, a guy who just like I remember Super Mario Brothers. Where's my money?
Yeah.
Don't I get to be a CEO? I had a fucking Super Nintendo. I know I'm not the best at it. I'm not really good at it. I'm not especially knowledgeable about it, but I remember Star Wars in Super Nintendo. So you're supposed to give me $1 million, and I'm supposed to be the top of a feudal hierarchy. And then it doesn't happen. They're like, oh, fucking women. Fucking women and trans people. God damn it.
I remember Battletoads, and I'm sick of black people. Where's my parade? Yeah, I saw him playing Lies of P, which is a terrific. It is a Korean company made it. It's like sort of a mix between Bloodborne Souls and Sekiro. Amazing game. It was one of my favorites of 2023, and it is like kind of difficult, but it's pretty straightforward. I think if you put it in front of a child, they could eventually figure it out. But he was like, he freaked. He couldn't get it, and it's like, what else are you doing all day? Why can't you just learn how to get good at this? It's not like you're wiping. Oh, these are valuable minutes I could be spending wiping my ass or cleaning cockroaches out of my PC case. You're not doing that.
He reminds me of people that you would know when you're like 16 and you eventually stop talking to him because you're like, oh, he's just going to die in a pile of filth in his mom's house.
Yeah.
I don't even want to talk to this guy on IRC because he's just going to he like brags about not showering.
Yeah, my
it's
mom
just bumming me out.
I used to have friends like that. My mom would be like, they're going nowhere.
He's going to kill his mom.
They're going to kill their mom. They're going to flip over their car 50 times and kill everyone.
Yeah, like you'd have a friend that would like punch through a monitor every day, and his mom would buy him a new one. And you'd be like, what the fuck? Like for a second, you would be like, that's the life. I'm really jealous of that. And then you think for 2 more seconds, and you're like, oh fuck, man. Like I had a friend like that growing up who I stopped talking to, and his mom had cancer, and he would do that. He would like break all his shit because of Warcraft, and she would buy him new shit.
Those kids, their parents always have cancer. It's always some like beleaguered 60-year-old woman who can barely
they're too
walk.
tired to argue anymore.
Yeah, it's a beleaguered 60-year-old woman who is just weak from chemo. There's just the awful, sad stench of death in the household. And all you can hear is just like the thump, thump, thump of the kid trying to kick his wall down because the Papa John's app won't work. It's so dire.
Yeah, like it's like the point in their life where they're supposed to be like, oh, I have to step up and be the man of the house. And then, but they do the opposite of that. They're like, man, I can take advantage of this so much.
Yeah.
I can just use her credit cards to pay for whatever. And she's too tired. Like her vision is probably bad. So she can't even see the statements.
Yeah, they're like, well, I have to step up and be the toddler of the house. Like
all the shit I wanted to do when I was 5 and they wouldn't let me. Now's my chance.
I can finally buy knives on TV by taking money out of my mom's retirement account.
And Alex, I mean, when I checked his Wikipedia page, I was just like, okay, what's his cultural output? I assume he's a published author or professor or something like that. No, just World of Warcraft streaming. And then it was like career. And they were like, Asmongold took a hiatus from streaming when his mother died. And I was just like, I mean, your job is playing video games. When your mother dies as an adult, like he's like, I'm an orphan now. You know, I need to.
Oh yeah,
his mom died of COPD or something like that.
Yeah, in his house, which had the rats in it.
It's a really hard time for me. I just killed my mom.
Like he was supposed to be taking care of her. That was a whole controversy. Where people will point that out, and they're like, oh, how could you say that? How could you say that she wasn't supposed to be breathing in rat poop? How dare you?
Yeah, it's a
this man just
disease.
lost his mother. Yeah. He is an orphan at age 47.
Yeah,
that is the mark of like a true internet buffoon. When like their grandma or mom dies, you know, someone who was born in 1973, their grandma dies, and they're like, "Oh,
all right, 20 years where you can't criticize me."
yeah. Oh,
and also you don't have to seek gainful employment.
Real mature. Our grandmother was just taken from us at the young age of 98, and you're gonna come at me during this emotionally vulnerable time.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy because I remember like when my grandparents died, my dad probably took like 2 days off work.
Yeah, if my remaining grandparent died, she would, you know what she would want me to do? She would want me to do an extra 2 hours of content that day. Because that's what her family
She would
did
want you to do a movie mindset episode with Y Tu Mama Tambien and Challengers.
Yeah, she would want me to talk about a very sexy movie that she would tell us all about, believe me. Like, you know, I joked about seeing that Nicole Kidman sex movie with her. She would actually love to do that. That's her favorite thing to do, to watch a movie with full penetration. And she would want me to talk about it and do it. And I would never, ever take time away from making content. She would. Yeah. How do you think her family afforded to come to America? They didn't take a break from doing their podcast in 1907.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I always think about that with people talking about being nostalgic for their childhood and shit. It's like, do you think your parents wanted you to do that as an adult? Do you think they gave you that childhood so you could be 40 talking about missing your childhood? They wanted you to be fucking working and having a family. And it's like it nullifies the whole thing when you're like, man, I just want to be 12. It was so easy because that was provided for by your parents at a personal sacrifice to them. And you're like, that's not what they want you to be doing right now. They're like, why don't you get a fucking job? What are you doing?
Alex, you know,
and you're
the
like,
worst
fuck
part?
you, mom. I don't give a fuck about what you want. I liked you 20 years ago. That's when you were cool, when you were buying me stuff.
Yeah, Alex, you know what the worst part about being an adult is that I can no longer wake up on Christmas morning and see all of the presents nicely wrapped that my parents, grandparents, aunts, and uncles have got for me. And there isn't an equivalent like that for an adult. And it sucks, and we should go back.
It fucking sucks. We need to make Santa. Yeah. Why isn't there Santa?
I
can't have sleepovers with my friends anymore. We can't stay up all night playing video games. I mean, I can do that, but I just don't have friends. Yeah.
The only people who want to sleep over are on Grindr, and they expect me to fuck, and it fucking sucks.
All the like nostalgia people, I love when they talk about like, oh, remember when there wasn't all this woke shit in games, and what the feeling of enjoying things that they're describing is just like the time in their life before they had clinical depression from never doing anything.
Yeah. And if you really are that good at video games, if it really is worth spending your entire life thinking about it, then you should be good enough at it to make money or be able to be a game developer or something, but they're not because they're consumers. They're just consumers of mainstream kid stuff from Walmart. And now they're like, why aren't they buying me stuff anymore? It fucking sucks. Even if they had unlimited free time to do that, they would just be sitting and playing PlayStation all day. And then you ask them, do you have a cool take on this or something or analysis? And they're like, yeah, it's really cool, but it's woke, I think. Well, all right, yeah, that's better than you having a job, sure.
I said it earlier, but I think that's why these people are so bemused and excited by the idea of AI, because they're like, no, I can just type in a video game I want to play and it'll make it for me. And it's like, I did it myself.
And I hope the back doesn't fall out the other end of that, where the jobs get automated and then the economy keeps contracting and contracting and contracting, and it gets harder and harder to find the time to be like, I just want to play an AI-generated porn game. Eventually the other hand reaches from behind and says, oh, you guys that are just living rent-free somewhere and you're playing AI porn games, we got to get you on the street.
Alex, it's did you see the thing this week where people were thrilled about the unveiling of Optimus, Elon Musk's service robots, and they're like, sayonara, bartenders, they're not going to ask for a tip on this drink.
And it's just people have never been to a bar.
And these people have not even reached the level of even that level of employment. And they're like, yeah, they're all going to get replaced by freaking robots. And I suppose actually just being someone's child, that they're even in your 20s, that someone still has to be responsible for, is sort of like an automation proof job.
I guess so, until your mom dies.
Yeah. until they come up with a robot that is able to just eat all the Uncrustables and yell at his cancer-stricken mom. I don't know. I think maybe they could do it now, but it just lacks the human touch.
Hopefully the big AI, the big panopticon that rationalizes all the humanity out of the economy, they don't look at all these useless mouths to feed and just get rid of them. Hopefully the big AIs thinks, these guys who are 43 talking about how they miss when video games used to be good. And they're just smelling their dirty socks all day, sitting on a pile of dirty clothes. Hopefully the AI values those guys. The Matrix is going to put those guys right up top of the hierarchy.
They represent an intellectual elite.
Yeah.
If they get the economy they want, there'll be quadcopters surrounding every. There'll be there will be a Minority Report screen where a robot is looking and seeing what houses bought the most Funyuns, and then they figure out those are the houses. Where a guy is ostensibly taking care of grandma, the grandma retirement plan. And they will immediately deploy a team of quadcopters to gun down the Asmongold type individual living there.
Yeah, they're going to be Wi-Fi connected microwaves, and it's going to pull your data, and whoever uses the microwave that at the most is going to get cold or sent to the camps.
Felix, it's like the Israeli assassination algorithm is called Where's Daddy? We just need a new one for this country called Where's Grandma?
Yeah.
To hunt down anyone even tangentially associated. But hey, this Asmongold Mongoloid guy, he is apparently very successful at this. So he represents sort of a vanguard of financially successful grotesques who, are able to prolong their life despite living in filth because of the money they get streaming World of Warcraft and like I said, celebrating the virtues of heroic Western culture.
Yeah,
we should send him over there as a dirty bomb. Don't even strap anything to him. Just send him to Tel Aviv and just have him walk around, and he'll just introduce bugs that they don't have immunity to.
Well, thank you for filling me in on this guy.
I want him to fill me in.
Yeah,
that's right. Give me that skinny nerd cock.
Yeah, oh my god, put that Battletoad in me.
He could. There's a new rhythm game I'd like him to show me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would like to say this guy I think is a perfect avatar for Western culture, and I guess starting the show a little bit late today, but I mean, I don't have much to say about the ongoing Holocaust in Gaza right now, but suffice to say, I think we've all seen the images and videos of people being burned alive with IVs still stuck in them on hospital beds. And again, I don't have too much to say about it because words fail to do justice to this kind of thing. But going on what we were talking about last week, I think this is the week really where like the rotting carcass of American liberalism finally just sort of gives up. Because, we were talking last week about Kamala's campaign and her complete refusal to put any daylight between her and Biden on the issue of genocide, even if she's cynical, even if she's not telling the truth about it. But I mean, I just think like they've now completely run out of excuses because it used to be, well, you have to vote for Kamala because if Trump wins the election, he'll let Israel invade Lebanon, or he'll let them start a war with Iran, or he'll, just raise the Gaza Strip and build condos there. And now that all those things are happening right now, I think like the liberal attitude is one of resignation. And I think that they're not going to argue against it anymore. I don't think they're even going to say that what's happening isn't a genocide. I think they're just going to say, yeah, that's okay with me. And I think that like the Kamala Harris campaign really, I think, accurately sums up the 2024 American liberal project, which is that there really is no horror too unspeakable that they won't just sign on for, as long as it means that they can have, I don't know, a few choice ethnic restaurants and bike lanes in the walkable neighborhoods they live in.
Well, more than that, I think that like the mutual benefits between Israel and the American empire are mostly material and obvious. There are things like weapon sales and stuff like that. The carrying out of American foreign policy goals. But I think one of the intangibles that makes Israel so different from all these other places and why they get to behave so differently is they provide a very useful metric to whoever is in the White House, whoever is running the federal government at any given time. And that is to determine how far someone can go before American diplomatic cover is not enough. What is the worst thing someone is allowed to do? That has been the thing that they've been figuring out for the last 30 years, especially. And, be it Trump or Kamala or Biden or whoever won in 2020, that is just too useful and intangible for the American national security machine. I do think that, like, especially in light of this last week, there are still like left liberals who defend Biden and Harris, but talk about all of this as if it's an unfortunate detour, like a sad side plot in the story of the most progressive administration of all time. And for them, I wonder if they're not aware or if they just don't give a shit that like this policy of letting Israel just doing whatever it wants with no cap, with no limit on its behavior is like the consequences of this will be comparable to the Iraq war. And they've placed things in such a way that like Israel is not just going to like voluntarily get tired of, blowing up fucking nurseries and burning people to death. They're not going to get sick of putting detainees into rape concentration camps. The only way that they'll ever pull back or be brought to heel is
running out of victims.
Well, or Tel Aviv getting nuked. They've set the stage for that, and all the fucking misery and chaos and all the unintended consequences that spring out from there for the next, 5, 10, 20 years of this in the Middle East.
I don't know. I mean, like, I'm at a point where, Harris made a statement yesterday about how Israel must let humanitarian aid into the northern Gaza Strip as it's being exterminated.
So we can kill them.
Yeah, and I don't get what these statements are like. Israel must do this. It must do that. It must abide by international law. It must allow humanitarian aid in. It must be more careful about selecting targets so as not to kill scores of, people, refugees living in tents. Must, or what? Or what? I mean, I just saw AOC before we started recording saying about how she was just posting about how, oh, this is a genocide that's been enabled by Biden's arms transfers. I mean, that's a new line for her. I thought they were working tirelessly for a ceasefire. But my point is, whether it's AOC or Harris or any of these left liberal politicians, it would be better at this point if they said nothing, if they didn't acknowledge this at all. Because, this charade of saying Israel must do this, there's nothing to back that up. It would be better if they just didn't say anything at all.
Yeah, I don't know who that's for. It seems like they're just throwing a lot of shit at the wall at this point in the last month of the campaign.
Yeah.
Like, there's bizarre stuff on Twitter and the stuff like geared toward moderate Republicans. And I don't know how much the average voter is even seeing that. Like, they're just counting on a few magazine readers seeing each of these statements. And then it feels like most people made up their mind already and they're not really like following Kamala on Twitter. So it feels very weird and alienated, like, and very like diffuse. Like, they're not making one statement to the general public. It's just,
they're trying to be something for everyone. And, if you try to appeal to everyone, you end up appealing to no one. And just like a brief example of that, this is Senator Amy Klobuchar joined Tim Walz at an event at UW Eau Claire in Wisconsin. And she said,
and it's only a matter of time where we're going to see like a bus going through western Wisconsin with, I want you to picture this, Bernie Sanders and Dick Cheney together holding a sign that says Brat Fall. Okay, that is our plan. Okay?
Bernie Sanders and Dick Cheney together holding a sign that says Brat Fall. So that's what I mean.
Going off a cliff? Is that why you want me to picture it?
That's probably an ambulance. They have a combined age of 300.
I mean, it's one thing, right, to have like a campaign that is supposed to appeal to moderate Republicans
who are already won over. They got peeled off. They're Democrats.
Right. It's one thing to appeal to them, and if you're doing that, you would get Mary Elizabeth Cheney or whatever the fuck the daughter's name is. I forgot. Or
lesbian Cheney.
People like Mitt Romney, people in that whole that whole category. But Kamala recently bragged about getting Alberto Gonzalez's endorsement, which is like
who remembers who that is?
The only people that remember who he is remember him resigning in shame.
Yeah, who remembers a positive thing about that guy? Maybe like in his hometown or his family members.
If you were running for like city council in Dallas, an Alberto Gonzalez endorsement would not win that race for you.
Yeah.
It would probably
Lee Harvey Oswald. He said to vote for me.
Yeah. It's just, like, I am just baffled by the direction of the campaign. And the only two answers I can come up with for why they're doing what they're doing is A, that they hired Dick Morris, that he's back, that he's smelling feet and power again, or B, that this is one of the first elections where neither candidate wants to be president.
Touting the Alberto Gonzalez endorsement was at like a Latino event. So, they're touting all the
Latinos love Alberto Gonzalez. They can't get enough of him. They said Latinos
he's like the Selena of the 21st century. They love him so much.
If you got the real versions of the guys from Training Day who almost killed Ethan Hawke, and you were like, what do you think about the U.S. attorney scandal? They would do the same thing to you. They would be like, what U.S. attorney scandal? They were fired at the right time. That's always how it goes. That's how Latinos feel about that.
They should try to get the Morrissey endorsement. It would be pretty hard. You would have to say some racist stuff and like promise to ban meat. But that would win some Latinos. You don't actually have to do anything. He's not going to check.
Well, in addition to outreach to Latinos, I got two items here about outreach to the Black community. And the first is about Harris touting an agenda specifically for Black men, because I guess they're worried that, Trump is going to peel off some votes from Black men. And then, I guess I say first, Obama gave some comments where he seemed to scold Black men voters by saying, like, he was like, I think you just don't want to have a woman as president and you're making up excuses to justify that. And I don't like that.
I also want to say that seems to be more pronounced with the brothers. So if you don't mind, just for a second, I'm going to speak to y'all directly.
So, corralling them, getting them in line. But hey, that was the stick. Here's the carrot. Quote, Harris's opportunity agenda for black men includes a laundry list of policy proposals, including providing 1 million loans to black entrepreneurs and others to start businesses, investing in black male mentorship and training programs, protecting cryptocurrency assets, launching a health equity initiative focusing on diseases that disproportionately affect black men, like diabetes and prostate cancer, and legalizing recreational marijuana for black men to participate in the burgeoning industry. I think it'd be cool if she legalized recreational marijuana only for black men and prosecuted everyone else for using it.
It seems like that stuff is set up to just be knocked down by the courts.
yeah.
Anything where you're giving racial preference loans and stuff. Like,
well, I mean, other than protecting cryptocurrency assets, I mean, then the other one about investing in black male mentorship and training programs. I mean, that just seems condescending. I mean,
Isn't that what Travis Kelce went through? A training program to try to become a black male?
Yeah, when he had the high top fade.
The UNC program.
Yeah.
The $6 million UNC.
Yeah. Do we really need more Travis Kelce's?
Well, it can just be reversed by Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
He just dates a rich white woman and it just all goes away. So,
yeah, the Democratic machine has it all figured out. The protecting crypto assets thing is so weird that it made me wonder if, because this all is pretty offensive, right down to Obama trying to get votes for them by saying, oh, you're probably sexist. Anyway, vote for us.
I mean, I think both candidates should just endorse crypto at this point.
I mean,
because, they should both just be all in on it. Because where's the anti-crypto vote? Do those people give a shit?
Well, no,
I'm just pissing a bunch of people off who are trying to sell drugs. Just don't even mention it, or just say, yeah, it's awesome, cool.
Yeah, but I making that part of the black outreach thing. It makes me feel like there was something in its place that was determined to be offensive at the 11th hour.
Yeah. She was going to subsidize burner phones.
Yeah.
That was the proposal. And then they were like, no, we can't say that. We can't say that.
Yeah. It was a proposal that came directly from Josh Shapiro. Again, very Dick Morris, all of this.
I don't know. I guess my point about this is that why not have all these programs, but universal? I mean, because anytime you tailor something why are you only protecting black men's cryptocurrency assets? Shouldn't you be protecting everyone's cryptocurrency assets? It just
gets everyone angry.
Yeah, exactly. It's just why not 1 million loans to all small business entrepreneurs? I mean, or yeah, and diabetes and prostate. How about healthcare for everyone? That'll take care of diabetes. I mean, and
because
cancer.
Kamala doesn't. The closest thing Kamala has to a signature policy, how when Trump has a senior moment or otherwise gets cornered in an interview, he has 3 basic things he can fall back on, immigration, jobs, and deals overseas. But Kamala doesn't really have that, save for one thing. Her one signature policy and theme of her campaigns, be they her incredibly internet addicted 2020 primary campaign or whatever the fuck this is, it is the single most means tested program in human history. I think it was low interest loans for Pell Grant recipients who start a business within the last 3 years in a majority minority neighborhood. So the Amber Lee Frost loan program is her signature policy. And I think that when she actually sits down and they try to think of what's the Kamala policy, it's all shit like that.
Yeah, it's a big stack of paperwork.
Yeah, it's about as far as her imagination goes.
Just if you're lying, just promise whatever. Who gives a shit? It's expected at this point. Just say I'm going to give everybody free money. They already did that. They already said we're going to give you free money during the midterms and then didn't give it to us. Just say it again. Just keep saying it until you lose. Just say we're going to give you a check for $10,000. And when people get mad, say, fuck you. What, do you support Trump? Who cares at this point?
And another example from this week about how they're sort of trying to tailor their message, or they're trying to micro target certain constituencies that they think are important. I got to say, it is a really bad sign for the Harris campaign that they've taken this much time and effort, including running ads on television against Jill Stein and and tailoring messages to Jill Stein voters. about why she is secretly supporting Donald Trump or something like that. But like, and all the message in all of these ads is this: Jill Stein has absolutely no chance of winning the presidential election and no plans whatsoever. If you're spending money to run negative ads against the candidate that you say has no chance of winning, rather than the one that you're running against, that is a bad sign. That is a very bad sign. And I just want to note something. This is from the journalist Sana Saeed, who got access to a WhatsApp group targeted to Muslim voters in Michigan. And this was a Harris campaign sort of like bullet points about how their surrogate should talk to Muslim voters in Michigan about why they shouldn't vote for Jill Stein. And among the bullet points here under why Muslims should support Harris, one of the bullet points is strong commitment to human rights in Gaza. It says here, Harris advocates for a ceasefire, protection of civilians, and humanitarian aid in Gaza. She was the first member of the Biden administration to publicly call for a ceasefire and for a substantial increase in humanitarian aid. She also has
who else would it be? Like the Secretary of the Interior is going to publicly call for a ceasefire without checking with anybody? Was that going to happen? They would get fired.
And it also says she has also demonstrated greater empathy for Palestinian suffering than Biden. Thus, Harris is the only viable ceasefire candidate and the only path forward to end the genocide in Gaza.
I guess so. She has brain activity. That's all it is. Like she doesn't have to go to sleep at 2 p.m. because her brain stops working. So yeah, I guess she has more empathy than Biden does because he doesn't know what room he's in.
Another little tidbit here for Muslim voters, the MENA category in the census. Harris advocated for the new MENA category, which is, I believe, Middle Eastern and North African category, which will allow Arab Americans across the country to be more fairly counted and enhance data for critically important research.
They're making them not white?
They're
striking them from the white rolls? It's a punishment.
No, well, I was going to say, Alex, that's a good point. But I was going to say, at a time when Arabs are being genocided in the Middle East, Harris's appeal to them is we'll more accurately categorize you in our census and keep data on where you live and your race better.
No, she should be saying they're all white. All of them are white, and they're doing white genocide over in Israel. And that's how you appeal to both sides at once. Try it. I don't know.
Under why Muslims should not vote for Jill Stein, one of the bullet points is her support for war criminals. It says Stein has no right to claim she is the moral candidate. She has expressed support for Bashar al-Assad, a war criminal responsible for the deaths of 200,000 Syrians, including the use of chemical weapons on children. Her past relationship with Vladimir Putin, who committed the genocide of hundreds of thousands of Muslims in Chechnya, is also problematic.
Yeah, wouldn't want someone like that. Well, yeah. Harris is not friends with anyone like that who is responsible for the deaths of hundreds of thousands of Muslims, or a war criminal for that matter.
Have you no conscience, Jill Stein? But again, it's just like, and one of the other bullet points is that she's not a viable candidate. Well, then don't waste time and money running ads against her and trying to counter this messaging. It's just like, it goes back to what I originally said. Write off the Muslim voters in Michigan. Or just like, don't talk about this shit because there is no way out for you. There is no way that they can run a campaign appealing to, anyone of basically progressive values with anything other than, you want Trump to be president? Because that's the only message that they have. You can't run a campaign and not acknowledge or speak directly to their policy towards Israel and Gaza. It's impossible. So it'd be better if they just simply ignored it.
It's just on the front page of the newspaper every day this month. You just can't do it. You can't swing it. You just got to take those resources and put them into knocking on doors in the suburbs.
Yeah, they made their choice long ago. Weapon shipments those will never be on the table. Okay, then you've completely forfeited all of those voters. Stop fucking crying about it. This is what you wanted. You don't get to rub people's noses in it and then beg for their vote and scold them for it.
Yeah, you have to think about stuff rationally. They always fall back on that, like trying to blame people for not voting. Like, your job is to figure out who's voting and get them to vote. Your job is to get the number as high as possible and not be like, well, it's like running a store and you're like, just spend all day writing about how the people who don't buy stuff from your store are morally inferior.
Yeah.
Like, why the fuck are you doing it? Why don't you sweep up the fucking store? Why don't you get a new sign for out front? Do something.
It's like being a grandmother who's trying to sell her home, but she won't kick out her son who has a rat alarm clock.
Yeah. Home buyers are so entitled. Everyone who comes to my open house is just such a piece of shit. Such bad people.
I know the house for sale is next to a lagoon full of hog feces, but many of the buyers choose to remain pure and refuse to buy the house. So yeah, that's the Harris side of things. But I did want to check in with Donald Trump and his supporters.
Let's not do any more questions. Let's just listen to music. Let's make it into a music. Who the hell wants to hear questions, right?
And I'd like to dive into a fairly lengthy article in New York Mag's Intelligencer, documenting what life has been like for the J6 defendants in the big house, in the Huskow, Sing Sing, and what their lives are like in jail, in prison, and how they're adapting to life in Oz, in Emerald City, behind the bars. And the article begins, early in the evening of July 13th, in an isolated cell block of the D.C. jail about 2 miles east of the Capitol building, a dozen detainees charged with some of the most violent crimes committed on January 6, 2021, were participating in a 1,000 burpee challenge. The group made up roughly half of the inmates held in the block, a special unit sequestered from the jail's other prisoners and known to the residents as the Patriot Wing. The challenge was in honor of a former resident of the unit, a fitness evangelist who had recently been transferred out to serve a 5-year prison sentence for attacking police officers with a floor lamp, a shoe, a nightstick, and a spiked club made from the broken table leg and nails. Around the same time, in the western Pennsylvania town of Butler, Donald Trump was taking a rally stage to the tune of God Bless America. Scripps News, the primary channel played in the unit, was carrying the event live, and a few of the inmates were watching the TV in the TV room where residents kicked their feet up on the rows of couches. Somewhere around the 400th burpee, the pop of gunfire came through the TV speakers, and Trump on screen grabbed his right ear and ducked below the podium. The inmates watching shouted that Trump had been shot, and others rushed into the room. Prisoners began screaming, sobbing, and clutching on to one another. They ran through the unit. Some attempted to flip over tables, though these were bolted to the floor. They checked their electronic tablets allocated by the jail and saw they'd been taken offline. The block's bank of phones also seemed to be disconnected. Now, just reading the first 2 paragraphs of this article, and I just got to say, why have we made prisons into hotels for thugs and criminals? You're telling me they have couches, TVs, and tablets that they can use? Why the fuck? They have phone time as well? Why are the jails giving them tablets and TVs where they can watch the news?
Nobody wants to work anymore. They should be picking cotton. Where are the Clintons where you need them?
David Dempsey, a 37-year-old man from Van Nuys, California, who in January pleaded guilty to assaulting, resisting, or impeding officers using a dangerous weapon, told me he was in his cell reading when he heard the shouts. Outside his door
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't. You're full of shit.
Outside his door on a television posted high in the hallway, the news replayed the moment Trump went to the ground, and Dempsey thought he was dead. I was fucking devastated, he told me. I started having a panic attack. I was crying, screaming, yelling. He flipped out on the guards, he said. I demanded that they turn on our phones, saying, this is fucking bullshit. I just think they killed the fucking president. You want to tell me to calm down? And the guards just let them do this?
They took it worse than he did. Trump didn't even react that bad.
By this time, most of the inmates had seen the footage of Trump being pulled to his feet by the Secret Service, lifting his head, a line of blood spattered along the right side of his face, and raising his fist, and the atmosphere on the block turned to manic chaos. Inmates, still screaming, punched holes in walls and smashed the overhead fluorescent lights. The
How do they have
DC
walls you can punch a hole in?
What?
They have drywall?
What the fuck? We're paying for these guys to live in grandma's big house. They get to do all the stuff they were doing before. They have iPads. They're punching holes in walls. They're throwing tantrums.
Yeah, it is kind of, it's like a weird paradox where ideally you would not allow these people to the social media resources and stuff that made them insane and made them upturn their entire lives, going to a failed protest and like throwing a lamp at a cop and getting 20 years. And now like their sister has to raise their kids. Like you would think you was like, okay, take away the shit that made them do that, but you can't because a lot of it's just on the news. And you can't just not have them watch CBS. But then they see CBS and they start rioting in the prison. I don't know what you do.
Is there, like, would it be constitutional to make it so, like, they could only watch Bluey?
That's what it
Probably
should be.
not.
It should only be self-care cartoons. Just get everybody to calm down. Because you're in prison, you can't do anything. What are you going to do? You're going to break out and then try to break into the Capitol again and then fail again? Get sent back?
Yeah, we're going to do a whole escape from Alcatraz so we can go back and fart on Nancy Pelosi's desk like last time.
We're going to run around in a costume and then be like, well, we didn't even punch any cops during the thing where we were supposed to take over the government.
All the cops killed
themselves. We threw a lamp at a cop, but we didn't kill enough people to make a difference, but enough to just get sent to jail. Just the perfect medium to get us all in trouble without accomplishing anything.
And they're doing burpees in prison too. They're getting stronger. When they get out, the next January 6th is going to be even better because they're all strong and well read from being in prison.
I would like those burpees to be fact checked, just like how Alex said that he would like a fact check on the guy reading. I would.
What were you reading?
Yeah, like Wikipedia summaries of movies that you've seen does not count as reading. Believe me, I've tried, but I would also like a fitness expert to evaluate the burpees because that is straining credulity.
Going on in the article, it says here, Dempsey and I talked often in the first couple of months, about once a week. He typically called at around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and our conversations were capped by the jail at 15 minutes. If Dempsey wanted to talk more, he'd need to wait on a mandatory 15-minute break and then call again. He seemed fascinated by the prospect of establishing common ground with a journalist, and he would often quiz me on environmental issues. Quote, plant the trees, smoke the weed, save the bees, he said. He regularly brought up the idea that it might be unwise for him to speak with me. You know, talking with you, he said. People might get on my shit about it. Countless outfits have sprung up in the name of the rioters. Stand in the Gap funds their legal battles and offers re-entry services. The Patriot Mail Project coordinates letter writing campaigns and distributes cash and gifts. Many groups are run by former inmates or rioters' family members. Amnesty National.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Fuck other countries.
Which also doles out money to the prisoners. Is
Doctors with Borders.
Is operated by Daniel Goodwin, a Proud Boy convicted rioter and web designer from San Francisco, who has recently found by a judge to have violated his supervised release by engaging with extremists online and spreading misinformation. The Hughes Advocacy Foundation, also known as the Patriot Freedom Project, has raised millions for the inmates and is run by a relative of Wing resident Timothy Hale Cusinelli, who previously trimmed his mustache to resemble Adolf Hitler's. I was like, say, okay, like there's this huge letter writing campaign. If I were a J6 defendant, rotting in jail for trying to save democracy in the United States, if I didn't get a single wedding proposal from one of these MAGA women, like the Night Stalker or something, I would be very, very upset. Because like, are these guys getting hit up by women, or there's just more guys like them writing about how we're going to get you out one day? Because someone better be putting money on my books and proposing marriage to me for all I sacrificed for the country if I was them.
It's pretty depressing because all the money that was going to be spent on them already got sent to lawyers. Like lawyers just took it already. All the money that people were willing to donate or that they had to donate to these people. And Trump isn't going to help them. Like they already spent probably $10 million and it just went to lawyers who were like, well, my client here. And then the client stands up and he's like, fuck you, fuck all judges. Judges are fucking gay. And the lawyer's like, oh, I don't, fuck, shit. I don't know.
And when
you let him go, please?
Yeah, I like the idea that Trump is like Lil Durk and he's like putting money on his shooters' books, but I really don't think that's happening.
Well, a little earlier it said here, Stand in the Gap funds their legal battles and offers re-entry services. What do you think those re-entry services are like for when these guys, get out of prison? And
when you go to a job interview, don't accuse the hiring manager of owning a child zoo. when you're in a halfway house, do not tell the house manager that you think there is video of them raping an infant to death.
Yeah, I don't know what you do.
You don't do out in the real world. Just keep that in mind.
there's no way to really get people out of that, because they get out and they just have to work a shitty job, and then they're looking at like social decay and everything getting worse. And then obviously you're going to come to extremist beliefs because of that. And you watch the news, and the news makes people insane. Just reading the newspaper, watching CNN, watching Fox News. And you can't just avoid all that. You can't tell these people, well, just don't watch TV, don't read the newspaper, don't read anything, don't do it. Like, just go to work and go home and shut up. Like, they're just not going to want to do that. They're going to want to look at the computer because it's fun, and it's like a little game where you get to plan an insurrection with your friends, and then you're all like, oh, I don't actually, maybe we can like throw a lamp or something. I don't know.
QAnon is so fun. I don't even believe in any of it, and I participate in it. I think it's awesome. You can't just voluntarily, get someone to leave QAnon. I think, like Alex said, this is going to be a problem until there is like a government department with like 200,000 bureaucrats on staff that is trained specifically to deal with the complaints of the most insane and tablet-addled Americans. They're just always going to be susceptible to this until there is a number they can call and a building they can go to where they're like, oh my God, the homeowners association is conspiring with the deep state against me. And a bureaucrat who is paid a handsome salary will listen to them and pretend to tend to their problems. Until we have that, it's going to be a vicious cycle of drywall getting punched and then restored. It's the same thing of legislative bodies getting farted in.
It's the same thing with fentanyl, where you tell people, well, you can get clean, and then you can just go back to that sober, and you're just pointing to like the smoldering wreckage of a city. Like, you can just work your shitty job dead sober, and just like look at all the horrible sickness happening around you, and they're like, well, no, I don't really want to do that. There's just nothing. There isn't like this great 50s new frontier where it's like, oh, you get the house with the picket fence. Like, what's the point of staying clean from all the social media rage?
Yeah, stay clean, rent for 30 years, and then hope you have enough money left when you die.
I mean, so like, actually, this article makes being in prison with all your friends sound quite a bit funner than that. Going on here, it says the scale of support the rioters have on the outside, according to Michael Jensen, the research director of the National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism, known as START, is unique among incarcerated groups, including gangs. The only historical parallel he could think of was that of the imprisoned members of the Irish Republican Army. This network of believers is maintained.
They're braver.
Well, sorry, what did you say, Felix?
I said I think they're braver.
Well, as long as we're talking about Irish people, I did want to mention the thing about how Israel is attacking the UN peacekeepers, including Irish soldiers in Lebanon right now. I just got to say here, and this is maybe pretty harsh of me, but I don't want to hear shit about these UN peacekeepers until they jump out. Until they fire back, I don't want to hear about any of their complaints about how people are shooting at them. You have guns, use them.
No, yeah.
At least shit in the river. They need to shit in the Jordan River and maybe poison some Israelis like they did in Haiti. Like, they have a pretty high kill count from shitting in rivers.
Start a cholera outbreak, please. Just do something.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear you weeping online about how they're attacking your position. Well, you have an armed, fortified position. There's a remedy for that when another army attacks your forward operating base. But these guys are unquestionably braver and cooler than the IRA. It says here, this network of believers is maintained in part through one of the wing's key rituals. Every night for the past 3 years at 9, the inmates have joined a type of conference call, usually through their state-supplied tablets, and spoken to a vigil of supporter activists outside the jail and an audience of thousands listening live across the country. It says, quote, tablets are now common in some correctional facilities, non-existent in others. They talk about their cases, their persecution, the stolen election. Every night they sing the Star-Spangled Banner. Around 20 wing residents collaborated with Trump on a song, Justice for All.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Trump recites the Pledge of Allegiance, and the inmates in the form of the J6 prison choir sing the national anthem. In March of last year, the track debuted at #1 on the Billboard charts. So, like, honestly, the conditions inside the Patriot Wing at the DC Metro Prison sounds markedly better than any of these guys' lives before they got arrested.
I'm gonna disagree here. If I went to prison, I would go, okay, at least Zoom calls are out of my life. I would be like, I would be like,
schedule a Zoom call at 9 p.m.
If it was my first day in January 6th prison, and they're like, all right, get ready for the Zoom call at 9. We do it every day. I would be like Tom Hardy in Bronson. I would be greasing myself up and like making body armor and trying to kill guards if they told me there was a daily Zoom call.
Yeah.
Well, Felix,
if I was in solitary and they were like, sir, it's time for your family Zoom call with your family, I would be like, I think I'm busy.
Yeah.
I was going to try to bang my head against the toilet sink combo.
I would walk open asshole first into the shower.
Just take
I
me.
would try. I would just be yelling, is anyone one of Boozy's butt thugs?
Well, Felix, if you thought the Zoom calls were good, you're going to love this next part. This past June, Patriot Wingers began publishing a video podcast, The DC Gulag, hosted by a rotating cast of prisoners and filmed at a panel-like table set with a picture of Donald Trump, a copy of the Declaration of Independence, an American flag, and select books, including 1984 by George Orwell and The Russia Hoax, the illicit scheme to clear Hillary Clinton and frame Donald Trump. The 8 episodes posted so far begin with a 2-minute introduction riddled with conspiracy theories and January 6 apologias. The truth, it tells listeners, is that the American patriots stormed the Capitol after a year of Chinese bioweapon lockdown, censorship, and an unfair stolen election. Once the cops attacked us, we the people raised our middle finger to the system that had been oppressing our citizens for too long. Among many other claims, the show has alleged that the January 6 defendants were kidnapped by the FBI under threat of pain, torture, and murder. The DC jail did not answer if it was aware of this podcast or the nightly live stream.
Oh my God. Okay, first of all, they like to reframe this as like it was also about the lockdowns. All these people were coming from like Florida. What lockdown? You had like 2 weeks of it.
Yeah, wasn't Ashley Babbitt from like Kansas?
Yeah. Oh my God, the lockdown in fucking Omaha is too crazy for me. I have to go rub my balls on fucking Chris Coons's credenza. Like, no one believes that.
That did make a lot of people insane, but I don't know. I don't know if it was those people.
Going on with the various entertainments that they provide themselves, it says, but the place often sounded like sleepaway camp. Dempsey told me that residents put on a semi-regular variety show with costumes and props called the Hopium Den. He described it as the J6 jail version of SNL. Performances would include political sketches, roasts, songs, and poems. Traditionally, Dempsey said, one person would assume the role of bridge troll, a type of chorus to the event who speaks only in what the inmates to consider to be disinformation. They just say outlandish things that are never true, but are like salacious rumors, Dempsey told me. The only example he gave were politically neutral and somewhat bland. Trump and Hunter Biden joining forces to put $100 in everyone's accounts, for instance. He recalled one sketch in which an inmate created a character named Super Jesus and delivered zany sermons from atop an ottoman with a broom for a staff. Given the residents' shared interest, it seemed unlikely that this material was always so benign.
Man, if you're going to be turned gay by prison, at least get fucked in the ass or fuck someone's ass. You're just doing theater. You're just doing a variety show. Fuck.
You know, I think you would have prevented at least half the people from being at January 6th if there was a federal community theater program. That's what I'm really getting here. The average like jug hooter yearns to play the Phantom of the Opera or Jean Valjean, but they're afraid their friends will call them gay.
I mean, I think prison is a good solution to the male loneliness epidemic because I don't think any of these guys were hanging out and doing variety shows and podcasts and just hanging out with their friends before this. So, yeah, just, attack the federal government and get sent to, what sounds like a fairly cushy prison where they give you tablets and, TV and couches. And
we
time to do and the equipment to do live streamed video podcasts from behind the wall.
We would be doing 3 episodes a week or 4 in prison.
Yeah,
like Schillinger
gets the third mic.
I didn't know that the prison was like this, where it's like, okay, time to go to prison. We're sending you to the prison where all your friends are. Like, okay, if it's like that, then we should probably move the show to prison.
Patriot wingers tell me that many, in fact, are leaving the bloc more committed to the January 6th cause than ever. In August, I spoke with Brandon Fellows, 29, who during the attack had smoked a joint with his feet on the desk of Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley. He'd been held in the wing for 2 years.
Probably supports legalizing it, and Trump doesn't. I never get that.
He'd been held in the wing for 2 years, and he was now living in a luxury apartment building in D.C., paid in part for by American Patriot Relief, one of the many organizations that bankroll the rioters. The election was stolen, he said, and now looking back, we've had the right to overthrow the government. We still do at this moment, and I wish it would happen, truthfully. When I talked to Fellows again in early September, he just returned from a skydiving trip. He said, I'm definitely so much more for overthrowing the government after what they did to me. I'm totally down.
Yeah, buddy. I love this guy. This guy just somehow going to prison made him upper middle class. And he's like, any day now, just wait. Oh my God. I'm waiting for you to push my button. Once I'm done with dressage classes for the week, I'm going right back.
But I do like that, like these groups like Stand in the Gap and United Patriot Defense Fund or whatever are hooking up these ex-cons with like, it's like they've created for themselves a version of what they think exists for people who are on parole, where the government just gives you a nice apartment and like lets you commit more crimes.
Yeah, it does sound pretty great.
Yeah, they should just keep doing this.
Yeah.
Maybe they should keep them in there forever and just have them do plays and stuff. Because it's probably better than the rest of their lives. And it's like, they're going to overthrow the government the same amount, which is not at all ever.
I would say if you're a listener and you got either offended or embarrassed during the I'm taking care of grandma talk earlier, I would recommend that you take part in the next January 6th. Because it will at least bring her. It will be the most fun thing she's done in years. You'll make more friends than you've ever had. You'll get a podcast. You'll get all the stuff that you want. And being in jail will be just like grandma's.
I mean, especially if you got video games and computer.
Yeah. Like, this is just, I did not know the January 6th wing was so fun.
A little bit more about some of the characters. It says, as a teenager, he went to live in Colorado Springs with his grandfather, who taught him masonry, and he said, about morals. This seemed mostly to mean the value of hard work. Dempsey regretted never telling him about the abuse he'd suffered. I didn't want to be a little asshole. I didn't want to be a rebellious fuck, he said, but I found myself being like that. And I believe it's a direct result of what I went through as a kid, but never explained to any of the adults I loved. He told me how he now struggled with anxiety and panic attacks and that he had signed up for talk therapy in the jail. He said that the book he'd been reading when Trump was shot was the self-help title, Managing Negative Emotions.
That is like a book that you would have a Labrador Retriever read. Like, I'm sorry for what you went through, sir, but that is the book of a moron.
Barking control.
Finally, a book that will put aside my anxieties about dinner never being served again.
The invisible muzzle. How to give yourself the invisible muzzle.
Going on here, this describes a scene where a vigil was conducted because the prison intended to introduce some non-January 6thers into the Patriot wing. And it says, when it was time to reconnect with the wing units over tablet for the anthem, Withoft and Refit were unable to accept the call. The two huddled around a phone as a loudspeaker played America Will Survive by Hank Williams Jr. After a few minutes, the inmates skipped to the next step of the routine and began to flicker the lights in their unit on and off, the tall slit windows on the far corner of the jail block flashing. Those at the vigil beamed the flashlights back toward the prison. Then blasting over the PA system came the national anthem of the USSR. It played for about 10 seconds before Withoft and Refit realized it was the wrong track. Refit yelled, "Stop, stop," and then accidentally restarted it. It's the communist national anthem, she said, laughing. Then they located the American anthem and the group solemnly sang along. Toward the end of this going on here, it says, toward the end of our allotted time, Box looked around the room and lowered his voice. You'd ask what would have happened if Trump was killed. He was referring to our call just after the shooting in Butler. I think it would have been like Attica, he said, the bloody prison uprising that left 33 inmates and 10 guards dead in 1971. People would have tried to get out of here. That's what I think. I met with Dempsey an hour later. I took in his weathered thin face, his crow's feet and scraggly beard, and tried to match it to the voice I'd been listening to for so many hours. The words Ultra MAGA were inked into large letters covering most of his forearm, next to a Punisher skull topped with an unmistakably Trumpian coif. All his MAGA tattoos, he said, had been done in the wing. I asked about the laurel wreath on his right wrist. It was similar to the one used by the Proud Boys. He says it wasn't related to them and that he'd never joined. He'd added that they were good guys, but he didn't want to be part of an organization with lots of rules. For the second time, I told Dempsey that I'd heard of him years ago and mentioned the Santa Monica bear spray incident. I told him that he had a pretty bad reputation around LA, and he railed a bit about Antifa and the Black Bloc. A week later, on August 9th, Dempsey was sentenced to 20 years in prison. It was the second most severe penalty for a January 6 offender so far. The longest sentence, 22 years, had been handed to Enrique Tarrio, the former leader of the Proud Boys, who was found guilty of plotting and orchestrating the attack. Then Dempsey addressed the Joint Terrorism Task Force, aka the Cowards of America. The little prosecutors, he said, and little Antifa and their terroristic bullies. Don't celebrate too hard, man, he said, because that sentence is only going to last like 6 months. And then we're going to have 4 years of dragging our nuts across your forehead because Donald Trump is going to fucking win.
We're going to send you to prison, then you can do theater.
I mean, I think in all likelihood Donald Trump will win. But if he does win, I really hope he forgets about all of these guys. Because what are the chances that he does actually pardon these individuals?
He doesn't like losers. He doesn't like people who got caught. It gives him a bad feeling. It's like, ooh, I don't want to talk to you anymore.
Yeah, I think he'll be on the verge of doing it, and then he'll think about the actual reality that he'll have to like go and like bring these people to the White House. He doesn't want to talk to people like that. Yeah,
none of them even won the college football championship. But no, I mean, I think it's a fun article because I think it really shows how prison, can rehabilitate people and sort of like you can self-actualize in prison behind bars.
I just want to say that I looked up the first episode of their prison podcast on Rumble. And of course, the first comment is somebody complaining about the audio quality.
Oh my God. Podcast fans are the same no matter what. Sorry, the audio quality.
There's a can clinking against the bars the whole time. We asked him to stop. He wouldn't stop.
Sorry, no episode this week. The Green Mile guy destroyed the electricity.
Sorry, the toilet kept flushing and flushing and flushing, and we asked the guard to fix it, and he said, fuck you.
The video podcast will become an audio podcast at 9 p.m. when the lights go out. Yeah, so that's the J6 supporter, January 6th defendants. I got to say, I mean, get rid of all prisons, honestly. These men don't deserve to be in jail.
And make all society prison. Yeah. We should all be in prison because it seems pretty cool.
Yeah. You get to listen to music, have people support you, write you letters, and then hook you up with an apartment when you get out.
You do have to have a tablet, though, which I feel is sort of demeaning for an adult. Like some adults are able to hold a tablet. Like to me, that feels like wearing a helmet inside. To be an adult and you're holding a tablet, it's like, yeah, come on, aren't you embarrassed?
Yeah. If the Federal Corrections Department said that all prisoners could have Steam Decks in prison, you would commit a crime tomorrow.
Yeah, nah, but like I can't. It's really hard to hook my flight sim equipment up to a Steam Deck. I would do an IRA style prison strike to get my.
You would go on the blanket if they didn't let you have your flight sims.
But like, how far away are they from just letting them take their computers? Like, you might as well just let them do it.
They're learning how to fly airplanes.
They're already doing the worst thing you could do with a computer, which is create content. Just let them play games.
I think anyone accused of terrorism, they should just give them a flight simulator and let them train on it all day long and then let them loose. And whatever happens, happens. I don't know.
It's like people who used to complain about giving workout equipment to prisoners because they're like, oh, there's these dangerous, violent men getting stronger. No, give them Microsoft Flight Simulator. Let them learn something useful and potentially even more disastrous.
Okay, Microsoft Flight Sim is where you learn how to do 9/11. But if you're playing DCS, you're not gonna get a fucking FA-18. I know how to start one now and take off, but I'll never see one just lying around, much less hijack one.
Yeah, you instantly get 5 stars if you cross into the airspace.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about does it for today's episode. Guess we'll sign off there. Chris, we have anything to say at the end of the show? But I'll just reiterate, 2.5 weeks left to buy the book. Check out our new merch while you're buying the book, and come see us in LA with episode 1 on November 4th. I think it's still available. And Nick Thornburn and Dan Beckner will be there. Indie Rock Darlings.
Vic Berger's new Donald Trump mini doc, The Phantom of Mar-a-Lago, premieres tomorrow, or I guess maybe today when you're listening to this, Tuesday, October 15th on patreon.com/Chapo Trap House, exclusively for subscribers. That'll be premiering live at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and then it'll be on the Patreon after that. So go check that out.
So yeah, that does it for us today. I want to thank Alex Nichols for stepping in again today.